Hi folks, my name's Chuck Newt, and I'm with Winging Pig Barbecue, and you're watching a new episode of Chuck's Cooking. And tonight we are going to make meatloaf, jambalaya, pork rib tip, collard greens, ham and beans, full slab spare ribs, and much more. So come on and follow along. Alright folks, well today we are going to do a rib testing, and what I'm doing here, I have two sets of St. Louis style ribs that I have put onto the smoker today. And what I have done, actually I took two sets of full slab spare ribs and I've broken them down into St. Louis style ribs and rib tips. But what I've done with one set, I have pulled the membrane off. On the second set, I have scored through the membrane between the ribs. And what I want to do, I want to see what is the difference, what is the detectable difference with the membrane on versus the membrane off. So right now the ribs have been on there about a little over 4 hours. I'm doing the 3-2-1 method, so they went on 3 hours of smoke time at between 225 and 275, and I've been doing a real good job of holding between those temperatures. But with a offset smoker, you're not going to hold exactly 225 or 250 because the temperature is going to fluctuate up and down. So yeah, when I say 225 to 275, that's just to account, every time you put a log on there, it's going to come up and then burn down, and it's just the way it is. So 225 to 275 is where I'm keeping them. These ribs are virtually identical as far as weight is concerned, and so everything is done in parallel. And in fact, right now the two slabs of ribs that are in there are wrapped in the same foil even. Now I will, when it comes time to sauce them, I will break them down and put them into separate foil for the sauce on each one of them. So I've got about another hour to go and before saucing, and then should be time to give these things a test here. So stick around, see what we're doing. Alright folks, well, if you know anything about me and watched any of my previous videos, you know I really don't like doing voiceover work because I feel like I lose the spontaneity of the time when I'm actually doing what I'm doing. But sometimes, like this morning, when you wake up at 3:30 in the morning to go get your fire going by 4 o'clock, sometimes you're not exactly with it at about 5:30 when you're preparing these ribs to get put on the smoker out there. So at any rate, what I'm doing here is I'm breaking these down into St. Louis style ribs and rib tips, and I just cut the skirt off there, and then I'm going to start searching here in just a moment. I'll begin searching for the joint in between the rib bones and the cartilage, and with a nice stout knife like I've got here, it's a pretty easy job to break through that cartilage and get these things separated. Now if you were at a slaughterhouse or a butcher shop or something like that, they just take a bandsaw and zip these right off in about 2 seconds and be done with it. But with a knife, it's a little more challenging, especially right there, because you got like a breastbone on the right hand side. We can make pretty short work of that, actually. That knife is actually pretty sharp, but when you're cutting through more than meat, that's the reason why you need that stout knife like that. See there, where I'm cutting straight meat, it went right through that with no problem. So those are cleaned up. I'm going to set those over to the side and find my opening here in this second package and get them opened up, and we're going to repeat the process just like we just did. take this skirt off just like we did the first one. And you might notice in my video here I forgot to turn my overhead light on. I've actually got 3 lights that I use to light up my kitchen studio here. And once again, like I said, at 5:30 in the morning, kind of forget some things like that when you got a lot going on. You know, got the fire going outside, worrying about getting these ribs done, worrying about filming or I should say recording, because there's no film. But so, you know, just a lot of moving parts here, but we're going to get through it here. Again, separating the ribs from the rib tips. And of course, the rib tips are not going to go to waste. In fact, if you look up there in the right hand corner, top right hand corner, I will put a card up there linking to my rib tips video. And the rib tips are actually going to be on the smoker much longer than the ribs, because I want to break down the cartilage in the ribs. Set that off to the side. Now I'm going to work on getting, I got to grab a piece of paper towel. There we go. Work on getting this membrane off of this set. This one didn't give me too hard a time. It didn't come off all in one piece, but it didn't give me too hard a time, and got it off pretty easily. I've certainly had worse. One of these days, I promise you, I will make a video showing you my kitchen studio, such as it is. Alright, so there's the first set, and since we're going to do this challenge, all I'm going to do here on the second set is come along and score through the membrane between each of the ribs there. You see me feeling for the rib bone. And I'm not going deep at all, I just want to score through that membrane. Okay, so we've got all our ribs prepped, and now it's time to get these things seasoned up. Do a little bit of cleanup here. Now I'm going to get these seasoned up. I'm using Weber chicken and rib rub here, and that's got a sweet profile flavor to it. And anytime you're doing chicken or ribs, I find that if you're using a salty type of rub, you really want to go sparingly with it, because you can over salt them, and if you're going to put a sauce on them, you're really going to ruin the flavor of your sauce with too much salt if you go too heavy with it. So this is a sweet flavored rub, and that's not going to cause any kind of a conflict with any kind of a sauce that I might want to put on these. Now I season my ribs just shortly before putting them on to the smoker. I don't let them sit for more than an hour or two at the most usually, and that's simply because a lot of your rubs are going to want to try to draw moisture out of your meat, and your ribs and chicken, you want to keep them as moist as possible. And so the longer that rub sits on there, the more likely it is it's going to draw moisture out of your meat, and I really don't want that. Now your pork butts and your briskets, there's such a mass of meat there that the rub on the outside isn't going to be able to pull all the moisture out of those larger cuts of meat, and so it's no problem to put a rub on there overnight and let them sit. So there we are, we're ready to go, and we'll get these things, as soon as we get the fire going to where we want it, we'll get these things out and onto the smoker. Okay folks, well, I delayed putting these on the smoker for just a little bit in order to allow it to get light enough to do some recording. So those are my two racks of ribs right there, side by side. And two strips of rib tips. Then we'll put these pieces of skirt down here. One of these days I'll do a video. I apologize for this wind. One of these days I'll do a video on what I do with those skirts. So there we go. We're going to do the 3-2-1 method on these, and we'll be back here in a little bit. Alright folks, well, once again I'm going to apologize for the wind. We had a cold front come through last night, and boy oh boy, these ribs are looking good. Make sure you can get a good picture of these on the camera here. There you go. Those are some good looking ribs. So these have been on for 3 hours now. It's time to get them pulled off and wrapped and let go for another couple hours. So that's what I'm up to. Stick around. Alright, so there we are, all wrapped up. We got our ribs here, rib tips here, and then my neighbor got a set of St. Louis style ribs there that he wanted me to do for him, which I've got on here. We're going to push these back in, continue on with our temperature, 225 to 275 as it flows up and down. We'll be back in a couple hours. Alright folks, I don't usually do this, but it's time for me to pull these out, and what I'm going to do is get them sauced up. Now, this is my neighbor's right here. I'll go ahead and start with that. See them cracking open like that when you try to pick them up? That's a good sign. Also, you see the bones pulling back. Another good sign. Alright folks, so let's open up these ribs and see what we got here. Oh man, they smell great. That one does anyhow. I have no clue which one I'm looking at here. There's the other one. And to me, color wise and everything, they look identical. Of course they should, because they were treated exactly the same, except for, let's see what we got on the back. Okay, this one here is the one that was scored with the membrane still attached, and this one is the one with the ribs with the membrane removed. So what I want to do, I'm going to cut right down through there, about in the center. Get a center rib out of that. I'm gonna That's a seriously good rib right there, without a doubt. Very tender and good. Now it's time to take a test on one of these others over here. Dumb thing. There we go. It's trying to rip rather than, and it's not because of it's on the front side that it's trying to rip. Like that. You see there. I might have to do a second one of these just to make sure. Now I'm going to tell you, mouthfeel wise and everything, with the membrane still on there, I really can't tell the difference. Not a bit. It bites right and pulls apart perfectly. I can not at all tell that's in there. I better eat a second one, just to make sure I got it right the first time. If I can find my... I'm trying to cut this through on the front side so it doesn't rip like it did the last one. That was interesting. See there? That's a good rib right there. Well, I find that odd. The front, where there's no membrane, it's trying to hold together. Kind of like it's got a crust on the top, actually, almost like a bark. Now I did not spray these with these. I did not spray these ribs, and so maybe it actually does have a bark on it. But the front of the rib is actually trying to hold together much more so than that membrane. I really cannot tell you that membrane is there as far as feeling it in my mouth. I must admit, I'm a little surprised by that result, but hey, folks, if it makes you feel better to remove that membrane, go right ahead. But I'm not so certain that you really need to. Give it a try sometime. See what you think. Folks, if you like what you're seeing down here in the bottom right hand corner, do me a favor, hit like and subscribe, and stay tuned. There's always more to come. Thanks for watching.